There's a huge impact of technology. Now, technology is wonderful. I am so happy when technology works, and I'm at an age and stage of life where my brain just doesn't work like it used to work. I need to have reminders and cards. So this is a good thing. It's not all bad. And there's a lot of wonderful things about technology. So this isn't about blocking it all, it's a reality. However, we need to know how to use it wisely, and we need to, like any other tool, it can be used, it can be misused. So we want to help ourselves and our kids use it wisely, because it is absolutely wonderful for learning, information, and communication. That's why we don't want there to be economic divides. We want this technology accessible so people have access to great information, to great networking, to wonderful resources. But few of us had really thought about all the ways it would be used for exploitation, except those that were profiting from it. And what's one of the industries that was big behind a lot of the technology development? It's one of them we're going to be talking about. It's the pornography industry. And pornography industry is in a lot of technology companies because they profit a great deal from pornography. Peer-to-peer file sharing, it's getting the digital cameras, so what are we going to have? Why do we have to have access all the time? And who would have thought that something like a camera could be so destructive? Toxic decisions make sense in toxic environments. Now, it can be a wonderful tool. There's incredible power about people's voices. You know, I love when kids take pictures of things and this is how they see the world, and we can share pictures back and forth. I'm on the road a lot. I love my kids to send me pictures. It's great. It's not inherently evil at all. But the message is, think about the hows and whys, and we hadn't even thought about how some of this was going to be used. This, I had to change every presentation I had, because they used to say 1 year ago that the average exposure of time on technology for our kids was 6.5 hours a day. It's now 7.5 hours. So that's including cell phones, which are taking over from the TVs and the video games and the computers, but all the different technologies that we are hooked into all the time. So one of the issues is it does help with some connection, because we can write. I mean, some kids will text you a ton. If you want to talk to your kids, text them, you know? And they'll do that more. It's not bad by itself as long as we still know how to look somebody in the face and to hold somebody's hand. It can aid, but it can also disconnect. I can't tell you, have any of you had the experience of where you have a group of kids that you're around and they're all sitting texting and not talking to each other? Be like, hello? Hello. And I really don't need you to text me when you will be down for dinner. I need you to get downstairs for dinner. It's a mode, so we know it. So this one took me back. There's different studies, they show different amounts, but it doesn't really matter. The issue is this particular one said that on average kids see about 35, have about 35 minutes, parents have about 35 minutes a week talking to their children, where the kids get 34 hours of media, okay? And I said, that is so wrong. I talk to my kids a lot more than that. And the person said, we took out logistics. What are you having for dinner? What's your homework? When do you have to be to church or synagogue? What kind of athletic activities do you need to be at? If you take all of that out, how much time do you have to talk about hopes and dreams and values against what they're seeing? How much time do you even have to have them make meaning of what they are seeing? Social networking sites can be fantastic. They can be great ways to connect. An example is, look at people, if you've got relatives and loved ones in war across the seas, what an incredible thing that you can Skype and you can talk to people and we can network. And this is amazing for families that live far, far away. It is great connections. But we also know that an adolescent's job, that development, is to try on different identities. That's what you do. You try on different things, you figure out who you are, you take risks. That's part of the development. And you know, the need to be noticed is big. and the need to have a bunch of friends. And I'm like looking at my kids going, you don't have that many friends. You do not have that many friends. And, I get to be a friend. That's part of the deal. That was part of the deal. You get to have this. Here's the deal. Here's the rules. This is how we negotiate this. Age limits, when I get to, all these different things. So, and how does a girl get attention in this society? If you want to get known, how many times, watch it, we do it over and over again to show that you're growing up. It's often a very hypersexualized way, and or a violent way, with the boys having more of the violent way that you get attention. Some kind of sassy comment, some kind of tough comment, and obviously there's gender crossover there. But that's a lot of the expectation. Plus, some of this is so normalized they don't even see it as being hypersexualized. So we're groomed to self-objectify ourselves in order to show that we're okay as women, and as men to objectify to show that we're okay as men. So cyberbullying is not a big surprise, and the risk is not so much the adult predator pretending to be a younger person, though that happens, clearly. It's some of the peer-to-peer betrayal, pressures, and so we need to be talking about that. And as I think the other thing that's important is we often talk to our children about how to deal with it when they're bullied, but their chances of doing the bullying are much greater than being bullied. And how many of us to talk to them about not causing harm to somebody else in what you say, or in what you do, or in spreading rumors, or in spreading pictures that we think are horrible, but let's show 20 other people. We need to be talking to our children about not causing harm to others, and our ethic and value in them speaking up as bystanders. When you know harm is happening, my expectation is that it is your business and you'll take action. What action you take depends on a lot of things, because we don't expect you to put yourself necessarily in harm's way. But that means we as adults need to do that, because we expect to do our kids to do. Why didn't these kids speak up? Why did all these kids take out the cameras? Watch adult groups doing the same thing. How many times at work are people spreading rumors, saying hateful things, and do we speak up and say, that's not nice. It's not kind. It's not our values. It's not a conducive to workplace. It's time away from task. How many times, I used to do a whole program on keeping kids safe in youth sports. You want to watch parents behaving badly? Parents in youth sporting events. And how safe does it feel for an adult to stand up to these parents screaming and yelling obscenities at children and in front of children? It is not easy. So the norm change, the skill development we can do to help children, adolescents, and adults be better bystanders. But the norm change is we're a bunch of knots. Not my job, not my problem, not my business. We need to change that to, as soon as you know harm's happening, it's your business and what you do. But we here have the fact that so often, and I think we've got an opportunity where our kids can teach us technology, but we still, just because they may have a technology edge, for those of you that have children that have the technology edge over you, they may have that, but we still have the how you live in this world, value, life experience. We need to value each other's experience. Let's learn from each other. You help me know what draws you into this, what is so exciting to you, how this works. And there's a lot of times my kids love it when I don't know something. So they love that, and I have to go back, and then I'll go back and forth and say, okay, let's figure this out. So I'm going back to Dr. David Walsh, because one of the other things he says that I love is about the power of stories. Throughout the world, throughout generations, values and the wisdom of cultures have been passed from generation to generation through stories. The storytellers are regarded elders. Who has been pushed aside by the digital age are the storytellers. We cannot let others be the storytellers for us. Stories are very powerful ways to spread values, to create this kind of social climate we want to have. And as David said, whoever tells the story defines the culture. Who is telling the story now about who we are as human beings, about how males and females are supposed to treat each other and behave and be represented? We need to take the story back. So, it used to be that if I had a crush on someone, I would tell my friend to tell them, or you might send a note depending on how bold you were. You were not asked or expected to take off your clothes and take a picture of yourself and send it. I wouldn't have thought to ask somebody to do that for me in order to show their affection or prove their love, nor would I have thought that this was a good idea. The most extreme people had was dropping their drawers for the Xerox machine, you know? It didn't have the, I was going to say it didn't have the spread, and that sounded really nasty. It didn't have the reach. I'm trying to come up with a good word. It didn't go as many places. All of it. The explicitness is toxic decisions make sense in a toxic environment. So here we've got a pornified culture. We've got the expectation that in order to be seen, you're supposed to be hypersexualized. We've got technology in your hand. We've got developmentally, your brain doesn't do impulse control yet, nor does it think of long-term consequences, because that takes into your early 20s, and some of us never learn either of those. So all of that's going on, and you've got the perfect storm. Sometimes not even realizing when they're crossing the line and producing what is actually child pornography. Now, there was an American Psychological Association in 2007. They only looked at girls. I believe we could parallel this to boys, because I think we have got to look at the harm on our boys every much as we look at the harm on our girls. But this looked at girls. They looked at over 300 studies of the effect of all of this media, not any one form, on girls, and said, yep, this is having a very bad mental and physical health impact on our girls. I love the way they define sexual object. Sexual object is when you are made into a thing for others' sexual use, or you see yourself as a thing for others' sexual use. This is also the part of the problem is not my sexuality. That's why I don't like sexualization as a term, and I say hypersexualization, because I should be developing as a sexual human being as part of who I am. The problem with this is it is the totality of who I am, and it matters more than my athleticism, my wisdom, my academic knowledge, my spiritual beliefs. It matters more than anything is how sexy I am or how hot I am. My appearance is more than anything. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look your best as a male or a female and having pride in who you are. That's only one piece of who you are. And that is having pride in whatever you got dealt with this life, in this body. So this is, and a very narrow, pornified sense of sexuality is imposed. When we get t-shirts, and I'm sure you've seen t-shirts that the girls wear like sex object, or with all of our work around harassment, I walked into one class and I walked by a young woman, a girl in high school, saying to a boy as I was going to teach the harassment piece, "You harassing me, baby? Bring it on." So this has become a flirting term, apparently. So all of this stuff, the language of oppression very often, whether it's racial, sexual, economic, the language of oppression very often gets turned around and we take it on. Now, my son pointed this study out to me for probably reasons that will become obvious when you go through it, but it was a study that said, just because a young adult is sexually active does not mean, if they're in a romantic relationship, that they are going to do worse off than their peers in a committed romantic relationship. Just because they're in a committed romantic relationship, where they do a lot worse is when they're having a lot of anonymous hookups, not connecting. It's outside of a romantic relationship. So whatever you're purporting, you may want them never to have a romantic relationship at all. But what this particular study said is it wasn't so much the romantic relationship that took away from academic, it was the very casual sex. And what is feeding casual sex? Sexual callousness, to look at other human beings as objects, to get off without connecting. with ever increasing violent content is pornography.